Welcome to this episode of our program To The Point. As usual, every week we are discussing an important file. Today we'll be speaking about a very important summit that has been taking place since yesterday and today in Egypt, which is this five-way summit that is taking place in New Alamein city and is gathering Egypt, United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Jordan, and Iraq. Many of the Arab files, regional and international developments and issues of mutual concern, or common concern rather, plus the Ukraine war that is, or the Ukraine war related energy and food crisis were on the agenda of the talks. Also high on the agenda, the Arab important files existing, including, of course, the latest ceasefire between the Israeli side and the Gaza Strip, in which Egypt mediated and secured this this ceasefire. Also, the developments in Libya, the situation in Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon, and the influence of Iran on this, on those particular countries that are exacerbating the situation. The common Arab integration or economic integration and the importance of that, particularly in front of the challenges that are facing the region. All that and more will be discussed tonight in our show, and will be also highlighting very important topics that were on the agenda of talks with our distinguished guest, Mr. Ayoub, Mahmoud Ayoub, former plenipotentiary minister. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, and thank the viewers.
Thank you so much. So before I start with the agenda of the talks, let me here take your reading to the choice of Al Alamein new city to host such an important summit.
It is phenomenal that the first important summit for the other for the 5 countries at this critical time takes place in Alamein. So it is inaugurating Al Alamein as a center for deliberation with the Arab countries and important Arab countries. When we find that Iraq is involved, Jordan, Bahrain, and Emirates, and it confirms the pivotal role which Egypt plays in the Middle East and its region. When it takes place in Alamein, this inauguration of Alamein as a place at the center for the diplomatic efforts of Egypt, or ushering it a diplomatic center for the Arab countries at this time when these countries are in a need to some kind of leadership. And this leadership is not only economic, political or strategic, it's also political, strategic, economic, and also social. Many considerations are involved when these 4 heads of states, Egypt, Iraq, Jordan, Bahrain, and the Emirates, are coming together to hammer out the problems which we are all facing and from Al Alamein. This is very important for us and for the countries, and we hope that the resolutions which will be aired very soon will be reflecting the importance and the power, and also it is in response to what the people are looking for, more integration between the Arab countries, not only these 4 countries, but also the Arab countries, so that they come together and hammer out the problems which we are facing together.
If I may ask about, again, Al Alamein, the choice of Alamein, because Alamein is this Mediterranean new city that one of the new cities Egypt has been constructing, and it took a few years, very few years, to construct those beautiful.
Yes.
I have to say beautiful because
It
Alamein
is.
is a very, or the new Alamein is a very beautiful city, and we have just seen the inauguration yesterday with all those fireworks and that.
Yes, so we are proud of it.
Indeed. But does this show how Egypt is eager to showcase the new Egypt or the new republic that we aspire for, and illustrate more on how far Egypt has gone, and how do you view that?
As you mentioned, now it is the new republic and the new face for Egypt, which has not been there just 5 years ago. We are constructing a show window, if we can say that, very sophisticated and up to date, and it copes with the needs of the 2025, if we can say, for the years to come and for many years to come. And it is very important that we make it attraction point for other conferences and conventions and gatherings, international and regional and local. Why? Because a lot of money has been poured in Alamein. We have to make it is a capitalization. It is investment, some kind of investment, which now we have seen the beginning. The president is welcoming the heads of states for countries, for Arab countries, in New Alamein, and it will be the beginning. This means that we will see a lot in this respect, and when they come to Egypt, they will see how far we have developed in that area. Indeed. And how far they can benefit from cooperation with Egypt in many areas, not only in infrastructure and so on, but also maybe in electricity and in technology transfer, and many things. And we will not forget that at some stage we had 1 million Egyptians living and working in Iraq, developing Iraq and helping Iraq to reconstruct. Now is the time when these Arab countries will ask for the support of Egyptian, not only the political leadership and also the Egyptian labor, and we need this to find a new outlet for the employment of Egyptians in these countries. It is economic consideration which we cannot ignore.
Definitely. In the new Alamein city is such an example of how Egypt is working hard in order to be able to also showcase its new face for attracting foreign direct investment, particularly the Arab investment in this area. If we go to the such an important summit at this very particular time, and the timing itself has its own significance.
It is very significant and very important. Why? We find that Iraq is facing some kind of threat, if we can say that, or subversive elements are working from inside and from outside against Iraq. And Egypt has always been supportive to the solidarity of Arab countries and supporting mostly when Iraq was. We have seen a lot as far as Iraq is concerned, or on the other Gulf countries are concerned. We have helped them to face the menace or the threats which they are facing, whether from Iran or from other subversive or terrorist organizations who are working. And at some time we will see that Saudi Arabia will come and support and be a part of this dialogue, which is very important from a strategic point of view. And we find that Jordan is cooperating with Iraq, and Egypt can do a lot as far as this economic cooperation and industrial cooperation is concerned.
Now, Egypt, Iraq, and Jordan, this is a dilemma in itself, because they have started already the trilateral mechanism initiative, and that was in 2019 already. Please.
Now we see Bahrain also we have seen Bahrain is a small, relatively small country. So they need some kind of a strong back, some strong country who's backing them economically, strategically, and politically, of course. And Egypt is the only country in the region who can play this role, and thanks to our political leadership, and is attracting the Arab countries to come again and support the main problems which we are facing, whether from Iran or from Turkey or from other countries or from Israel, and we are all in need to cooperate, or more cooperation. When I say cooperation, it is political cooperation, strategic cooperation, and most importantly, economic cooperation. When we create economic interests between Iraq, Jordan, Egypt, Bahrain, and the United Arab Emirates, and they come to Egypt and they see we have the manpower, we have the know-how, we have the experience, we have also the traditions, and we have the culture and the civilization, which helps these countries to find a big, let us say, a big backing for development, their development, and also at the same time safeguarding them from the other forces who are trying to manipulate or to control them in some way or other. Egypt is the only country in the region who is able to play this role as supporting these Arab countries and keeping them independent, and also supporting their causes as far as the Gulf area is concerned, or from economic point of view. When we see the energy is very important. When we see the many energy projects between Egypt, Iran, Egypt and Jordan, and even Saudi Arabia is benefiting from the power because of the different timings of the power. So we find that the power which is generated in Egypt is exported to Jordan, and at night it is exported also
Definitely.
to Saudi Arabia.
Indeed, Egypt has been working on initiating or being a regional hub for energy. That was
yes.
Egypt has been preparing for this. This five-way summit comes at a very critical times, when there are lots of Arab files. There are lots of developments in the Arab and regional arena. There are also lots of international developments. Part of that is this Ukraine war and the related energy and food security or food crisis that this war has created. This economic if I may say, hard hit.
Yes. Especially countries like Lebanon and also Palestinians. There is a lot to speak about as far as Lebanon is concerned. When we have seen the war in Ukraine, Russia and Ukraine, it has adversely affected even the supplies of wheat to these countries. And also we have seen, especially in Lebanon, we have seen some explosions at critical time for Lebanon, and this reflected on their central bank and also on the value of their currency. And now the Arab countries, whether Lebanon or the Palestinians or Jordan or even Iraq, they feel that Egypt is the only power who is able to support their cause, and it is a mutually beneficial relationship, by the way, for both of them, whether for Egypt or for these countries. And we need to more solidarity between Arab countries when we see the situation in Gaza and in the Western Desert, in the Western Bank, with situation in Lebanon, situation also in Libya has its reflection on Egypt and the Arab countries, and we need to foster a new kind of cooperation, integration, let us say, between Arab countries for the mutual benefit of each of these countries when they choose Egypt, when they come to Alamein and choose Egypt under President Fattah al-Sisi. This means that they trust that Egypt can play this role as a leader for the Arab countries, for the benefit of the countries, not only for Egypt. It is very important for them and for Egypt.
Yes, we'll be speaking about the different spheres of this summit, but before we continue on, let's have a very quick break and we'll come for more discussion. Right, welcome back, and indeed, Egypt is seeing lots and lots of developments, and particularly the new cities, and yes, indeed, that is Egypt, the new republic that we aspire for. Back to what we were speaking about and the five-way summit. And here I want to divide the agenda of the talks, because
yes, we need it.
There are some strategic and political spheres that we have to pinpoint our fingers on. We have this Israeli Gaza Strip ceasefire that Egypt has mediated and secured, and how this reflects, because we were not really in need of that in the mid of such an economic crisis. We have also the situation in Libya, which is unsettled yet. We have also the developments in Syria. And Syria has lots of issues, particularly at this very particular time. Lebanon, the unresolved dimensions of the situation in Libya, in Lebanon rather,
Lebanon.
And definitely Iraq.
Yes.
These are just few hints about each and every case.
Yes.
That is beside, definitely, the existence of Iran and its influence, and which is exacerbating the situation in each and every of those three
especially, yes, especially
Please
Lebanon
illustrate.
and Iraq.
Please.
Yes, that's very clear.
Speaking about the first the Palestinian cause and how Egypt.
Let us begin with Libya.
Okay. Fine.
Libya has a very important. When you see the location of Egypt and Libya, we find that Libya is very important from a strategic point of view, from security point of view, and at some stage also from economic point of view. For many years, Egypt has been the main support for the Egyptian economy and for stability in some way or other in Libya. After the overthrow of the last regime, we have seen that other countries tried to manipulate the Libyan people and create their own factions. And we see two governments, one in Benghazi and the other one in Tripoli. And Egypt was very clear in this respect. There is a red line which should not be passed by any other foreign country coming to Libya. Egypt is able to safeguard its western desert and the western borders, and at the same time we are more constructive, not just safeguarding our interests, our borders, but also we are a stabilizing factor in the region, especially for Libya. Many Libyan families came to Egypt and they are living in Egypt. And they are looking always to the support of the Egyptian, let's say, Egyptian state to support the entity of the country. Because we see that Turkey is manipulating Libya for the petrol, of course, for the petrol.
But there has been some arrangement, particularly today,
Yes.
as our
We hope
intelligence
that we find some
chief
compromise.
is there for some talks.
We compromise to find where the main interest of the Libyan people is safeguarded. This is what is important for Egypt. It is not for our own benefit, but mainly for the benefit of the Libyan people, because when we see many factions are playing in the oil fields, many factions are playing in the transportation of petrol, many factions are playing, trying to destabilize the parliament and the new government, whether this or that. And this means that Egypt has also a role to play in Libya, and Egypt is able and will do its best to stabilize situation in Egypt so that the Libyans can live in peace and also return back to development and prosperity. Egypt is, Libya is a rich country. When you see the population and the petrol resources, find that they can play a very important role in safeguarding the stability in the region. Of course, so there is Algeria is playing a role in Libya, and also Tunisia is playing a role, but Egypt is stabilizing the situation because its interest is creating an entity which is able to defend itself and be dependable as far as its economic resources are concerned. This is about Libya. Egypt has a stake in Libya, and we are able and will do it, and we will safeguard our interests.
Of course, Egypt is keen on the stability of Libya. They are our neighboring brothers, first of all, and our Western security, national security, and we are very much eager for this country to stand up again, so we can work all together for the security of the region. When we come to Turkey, then we have to speak about Turkey and Iran, because both have influence in many of the Arab countries. As we were saying, yes, Turkey has its dimension or playing a certain role in Libya, but also it is playing a role in Syria, for an instance, for in Iraq also, and so there is from one side Turkey, and on the other side Iran, with the possibility of a new nuclear deal between Iran and the West.
Yes.
There has been an importance, a certain importance for security arrangements for the Arab region.
Yes.
And hence came this summit to discuss the abouts of such
this summit is very important, especially at these times when it comes to Iran. Let us finish with Turkey first, please. Turkey is playing in Syria, playing in Cyprus, and also playing in Libya. And Egypt is always keen.
And Iraq.
Yes. Is keen to safeguard its interests, and it will do it. When we come to Iran, Iran now is trying to find some consensus with the Western country so that they can return back to the deal about the nuclear agreement with the United States and the Western countries. And at the same time, we have to make it very clear that Egypt is supporting the Gulf countries, not mainly Iraq and Bahrain and the Emirates. Kuwait and Saudi Arabia will come later on. But it is very important that we create the feeling and create this in the essence of the necessity of the Egyptian presence in the politics of the Gulf area. Because when there is a vacuum, who will fill the vacuum if there is a vacuum in the Gulf area? This only Egypt has been always supportive to the Gulf countries, and because we are seeing now Iran is trying to play a role in dominating these countries, and Egypt is the only country who is able to support Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, the Emirates, and Iraq to face the threats are imminent and they are clear when we see what is happening inside Iraq, when we see what is happening inside Lebanon and in South Lebanon from Iranian stooges, if we can say that. This means that the only country who is able to support this country, these four countries, or let's say six in this case, or if we add Kuwait and Saudi Arabia, it is Egypt, because
we have to say that there should be a kind of security arrangement among the Gulf.
Security arrangement.
Exactly.
Yes,
exactly.
This is what is needed at this stage, because these countries need some. There is, of course, there is agreements between the Arab countries, Arab League countries, but we need something specific for the Gulf area. This is what is needed, and that's why the beginning was from Emirates and Bahrain and Iraq, and I think that it's very important for the other Arab countries, let's say Saudi Arabia and the Kuwait, to come to terms with Egypt as far as safeguarding the interests and security of these countries facing the Iranian threat, and there is the threat by Iran in some way or other, and they have seen it in several cases. Subversive forces are working to destabilize. We have seen it in Saudi Arabia, we have seen it in Bahrain, we are seeing it already in Iraq, and Egypt is in a position to support these countries and stand on their feet and find the backing and face the threats in a very, well, let us say, in a very modest way, if we can say, or at least that we are there and we will not yield to the pressures from Iran, whether in Iraq or in Lebanon or the other countries. And Egypt is able to play this role, and we need to have some kind of strategic new alliance between the Arab countries to face situation which we are all facing, whether from Israel or from Iran or from Turkey, and these countries need it at this time, and Egypt is willing to do it, and because we have a stake for it. Is also from strategic point of view, this is very important for our own security, that these countries will be safeguarded from Israeli or Iranian or Turkish incursions. We have seen it in North Syria. We have seen it also in North Iraq. Even at some stage they cut the water of Euphrates and Tigris from.
That's a big problem, by the way.
To pressure the two countries, and we should come together. The Arab countries should come together and find a strategic alliance, a new alliance. And the beginning was in Al-Alamein Al-Jadida, and we are very pleased that they began it, and we hope that it will continue so that we reach our goal, which is very common and very important. And the Arab country is not very sure. Egypt is not the country who is not more. We are not imperialists. We are not colonialists. We have never played that role. We are also supportive to all these countries. We have seen it several times at the time of Iraq and the Kuwait. We have seen it when even Saudi Arabia was attacked. In many instances, it was even in Emirates. We have helped them, and we are ready, and we are very pleased that we can do something very important, and that is a new strategic alliance between the Arab countries to face the common enemy, the common subversive elements who are trying to play in these countries. And very important, whether from in the gas, and we are seeing Lebanon have some disagreements with Israel as far as the gas fields are concerned, and they need it. And also we need a stable Lebanon and a prosperous Lebanon.
Actually, we need a stable region.
Yes, we do.
We need to stabilize our internal front, so we
because it reflects in Egypt. It reflects not only politically, strategically, and also economically. And we have to take this in consideration whenever we have dealings with these countries, with the Arab countries friendly, and our brothers. We have to take also care for their economic prosperity, which will be reflected in Egypt.
Actually, we need to really work on the internal situation in the region in order to be able to confront the international challenges, because we are also in the midst of some of the unprecedented developments that are occurring worldwide. I mean, here, this Ukraine war that has exacerbated the economies of the whole world, not just the Arab region, but also, and have threatened the chains, a number of chains, food security, energy supplies, and all related issues. Before we continue on, or we start this issue and how we need to bolster our economic relations, let's have a quick break and we'll come back. Right, welcome back, and back to you. And we were speaking about economic cooperation in face of the unprecedented economic challenges, or challenges, international challenges that we are faced by, particularly the Ukraine war related crises. How do you view the repercussions of the Ukraine crisis, not just on the economies of the region, but also on the whole world, and how this is pushing us or give us a real importance now for economic integration?
If we look to the Ukraine war, it has adversely affected the economies of some Arab countries. But luckily, Egypt has managed to safeguard its supplies of the main products or commodities which were imported from Ukraine and Russia also. And we are in safe hands as far as our needs of cereals is concerned. This is very important.
Naturally, there are some opportunities for Egypt in this case.
This is what I want to speak about. Even the war in Ukraine created good opportunities for the Egyptian companies to replace the traditional suppliers of certain products to the Western Europe. And the Egyptian exporters...
Not replace, but help out, because we cannot say that we can really supply all the demands, but we can really...
Not all, of course.
Yes, definitely.
We are specialized in certain products which did not find easy access to the European market, but during the Ukraine war, it has smooth access to the market, and our exports increased in this respect. This is as far as the supply chains are concerned. What we have seen then is that the economic integration between the Arab countries can greatly help each of these countries to safeguard its national interests when there are these kind adverse effects of a war between Russia and Iraq, or any other war which can happen at any time. This is one thing. The other thing is that when these countries are together, and we look, there is some problems regarding the gas exploration in eastern part of Mediterranean, and Lebanon is in question in this respect. And Egypt is always keen to safeguard the interests of the Arab countries as far as gas exploration, extraction, and transportation. And Egypt is now a pivotal role, not only for this political role, but also for the gas liquefaction, and which is exported to Europe from Egypt. So there is a lot which is Egypt is playing a dominant role from economic and strategic and political point of view, and we see that it should continue, because we have the means and the leadership who is able which is able to play this game skillfully, like the other countries are doing this. doing in this situation in Libya or in Lebanon or in Iraq, and the other Arab countries need to come closer to Egypt, especially from economic and strategic point of view for their own interest.
Indeed. Unfortunately, my time is out, but there were lots and lots to speak about, particularly the agenda of intensified efforts to bolster our economic integration, which has started since the President assumed office, and the so solid and strong relation we've been seeing with the Gulf, now with Iraq and Jordan, in some of the important industrial and trilateral economic cooperation, and of course agreements that were signed with Bahrain and others. But unfortunately my time is out. I have to end it here. So Mr. Ayoub, Mahmoud Ayoub, former plenipotentiary minister, thank you so much for being with us tonight and for your input.
Thank you, and to the viewers.
Thank you so much. And dear viewers, many thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the top stories coming right after this program.